Cool. Hey all, this is 012 Boku and
The professional jackass Jarek.
and we are and we are coming at you sadly again for a long time. Sorry, work has been a really impediment on my part and for our reviews and things, but hey, we gotta do what we gotta do. But we are coming at you along again because we said we were gonna do a lot of TV episodes, but we will squeak in a movie here and there of ours, of one of our friends, mine or Jarek's, when we get the chance. And this time we did one of Simon's choosing. Summer Rental. A great, well, maybe not, the best John Candy movie, but a hidden gem that, is typical 80s fashion, sort of a cheesy story premise, sort of more towards near the end, but it's still an enjoyable movie. And, it's a rare gem where, it's like, it was before the complete John Candy sarcastic days where he was getting more into the sarcasm and dry wit humor. It's where he has a bit more of his goofy, overreactive humor, but he was still good in it either way. It was done in 1985, so around the time he was really starting to get his career off the ground, because a lot of people, we'll get to the movie at some point too. It's in my, it's in my comedy collection. One of his first movies he did, well, no, the first movie he did was Steven Spielberg's 1941 and 1979, and then it was, I think, Blues Brothers after that, so those were his first two films. But yeah, this is where he was still relatively unknown in 1985 with Summer Rental, but still a good gem of a film.
And it's funny because, with how he is in this movie, kind of reminds me of, how he was in Camp Candy for 90s kids.
Which is why I'm glad when we were watching this, Jarek, you mentioned that, because I don't remember Camp Candy all the way, but I do remember a bit of it, and it was similar to that type of thing.
And I remember that got a comic book adaptation too. I forget if it was Marvel or DC that handled it, but I remember for a short while he did have a Camp Candy comic.
I was about to say Camp Candy, really?
Well, I mean, they did a lot of those. They had, Kid and Play had one for a while. I know there were a bunch of other shows that had them.
Well, not to mention, Marvel and DC were big about that in the 40s, the Western comics. Thank you, Frederick Wortham, for almost ruining comics completely. But who knew Frederick Wortham would come back from the dead and ruin it almost 30, 40 years later, but... Hey, guys, but that's neither here nor there.
Persistence.
We'll probably get into that when we do more of the Marvel films, or if we ever do any comic book reviews on this channel. So we'll probably revisit that again somewhere down the line. Frederick Wortham, you bastard.
Hey, at least Vigilante got a new gig with the Justice League, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely, Jerry. But, yes, to get into the plot point of the movie, Jack Chester plays this. I had it on the other turn around. Thank you. Sorry, guys, my notes go flying. Jack Chester plays a air traffic controller who's very stressed out, sort of stressed out by his family, his work. He goes through a lot of major stress. Like we see, he has road rage in the movie. Nothing goes right for him. He gets trapped in his car at work. All the things that are funny. But when you think about it in real life, we sort of deal with, so you can see how he gets stressed out. And while he's on the job, he's sort of messing up things with the airlines and the planes, or saying, no, if, do you want us to crash into another plane? He's like, no, keep it your original heading and we'll get you here. And there's one point that's funny where he thinks there's another plane and he's like, flight, I forget the number, but flight something, where are you? Flight something, I can't see you. Flight, where are you? Jack. That's a fly, and his boss gets a fly at the thing. He's like, oh, I hate flies. They do that to me all the time. Sorry, I didn't mean to get scared by a fly. And because of that incident, the board wants to take him off the job for a while, get some rest, and his manager agreed. And, Jack's saying, it's not necessary. I don't need to. I'm really good at my job. But he reluctantly agrees, and him and his family go to, I think it's Citrus Cove, Florida, which is made up. It's actually, I think, one of the smaller subset Miami towns, is my friend Simon told me, but it's made up. Oh, good.
Interesting context. Well, kind of two of them. With the premise of this movie being a burnt out, office worker, basically being told to, go on vacation for your job and your health, kind of reminds me of City Slickers in that regard. And,
yeah, you mentioned that to me too. So I agree.
Also considering that this was 1985, this was 4 years removed from the massive air traffic controller strike of 1981, which was preceded by the massive string of airplane hijackings in Iraq, which I mean not Iraq, yeah, I think it was Iraq, which Jimmy Carter tried to resolve, and that really didn't get finished until after the elections of 1980. Because Reagan was smart enough to finagle a deal with the airlines to make sure they didn't get back until afterwards.
True.
But yeah, there was a lot, and I mean a lot of people who were still scared out of their minds. So honestly, them kind of saying, you know what, take a bit of a vacation. We don't want anything bad to happen. Not all that unreasonable. I mean, they used to do that back in the day. They saw you were having trouble. You were a good worker. Hey, maybe take a week or two off. Just go city slicking. Maybe talk with Jack Palance. He can help you.
Hey, yeah. Another good set of films I've loved to own. But yeah, like, Jack Chester goes on this trip, takes his family, and then probably a good time, because I mentioned how John Candy played Jack Chester. His wife, who is Sandy Chester, played by Karen Austin, with his other, three kids, they're all excited for the trip. They really want to go. They're thinking it's a fun time. Jack wants to have fun, but he's a little more, he just wants to be left alone. They get to this beach house that they think is theirs. They're starting to have a good time there. A little bit. Like, Jack sort of goes through more guff. Like, he's on the beach. He gets sunburned. His kids scare him with a dead crab. And, all the while, they also go to a dinner at a fancy seafood restaurant where the main thing is, lobster. And everybody's getting lobster, and it's a long line. And this one, I can understand Jack Chester and his family getting ticked out. Because, they're waiting in over 2 hours. And then along comes resident rich, I don't want to say regular movie villain, because Richard Crenna usually doesn't play a lot of villains. But along comes rich white neighborhood man. Sorry, I shouldn't have said it like that. Rich neighborhood man, regardless if he was white, played by Richard Crenna, who plays Al Pellet, who doesn't like rent. He calls them renters. He doesn't like renters being there at all, thinks they're in a space. And, this guy, Al Pellet, runs around like he owns the whole neighborhood, and he gets ahead of them right when the Chester family is next to go in. And, Jack Chester's like, what's going on here? Oh, Al Pellet has a reservation, but you told me over the phone you didn't make reservations. Oh, Al Pellet is, biggest member of the town. We make a reservation for him. And then, Jack Chester's trying to slide it off, like, hey, he took our table with his friends, I'll let that slide as long as we get our lobster, because they ask him what they want. They all want lobster. And then Al Pellet and his friends take all the lobster, and then Jack Chester loses it and goes up to him. He's like, hey, you took our table and you took our lobster. Give us those. And he's like, what do you mean, you renters? This isn't your place. This is ours. You take everything we have. And it's like, but this is my table, and bangs on it. And my lobster tries to take the plate. And Al Pellet, being probably just as much of a goober as Jack Chester is, he hits his wife. So this is your wife. And then your table. And everybody else is like, like, really, guys?
You know what I just realized about that name?
What?
Al Pellet. That's the name of those wooden planks you stack shit up on when you're moving them, into big trucks or boats.
Yeah.
So we basically got the guy who's the best, boat mariner in the entire town and a big celebrity, because as they're waiting, they see it's like, hey, look at all those trophies. It's all the same guy, Al Pellet, 7 years in a row, and. Also, you notice while he's waiting, you can actually see the tank with all the lobsters, and you see, the number going down to 5 by the time he gets there. Mm-hmm. And then, oh, look at that. Al Pellet and his 4 friends, 5 lobsters. Oops. But yeah, it's just weird. It's he's basically being bullied by a plank of wood.
yeah, basically. And that was a good point, because that plays in towards the end of the film, where Al Pellet is one of the biggest members of the community, and he's won this sea race with sailboats for 7 years in a row. And they notice that, and that'll play later on near the end of the film. And then, obviously, Jack Chester and his family, leave. But before they do, Jack Chester's like, yeah, we wouldn't want to be here. There's rats. We saw rats in the back room. There's rats everywhere, guys. Droppings everywhere, rats. Yeah, Dad, you're right. This place sucks. The young daughter who copies everything and speaks bad language.
Don't worry. I mean, I'm sure she'll grow out of it once she's 40.
But they go to a sailboat captain's restaurant played by Rip Torn, who plays Scully, to where they get the catch of the day special, which is basically just frozen fish fingers.
You know, and I love that, like the restaurant's basically like a repurposed boat called the Barnacle. Yeah, nothing ominous about that. And his like second hand guy is clearly an illegal alien who can only speak Spanish, which I fucking love because I mean, come on, it's Florida. We know how many dreamers are all working the restaurants.
Yeah, oh yeah, what's his name? I think his name was Enrique or something. But yeah, they do that. They head back home. Little do they know there is a black family trying to get inside the house, and they're the ones that actually own the house because it was Beach Road. It was Beach Road they needed to be on. They were on Beach Lane, and so they were at the wrong place. And then like, Jack Chester's all covered in, like, calamine lotion from his sunburn, and, like, the family needs to get up and leave. Their dog Archie is just, like, laying there, not doing anything. The family gets up and leave. The family's all irritated that they're having to wait. And
I mean, this was a nice house, too, because I told him, like, how the hell did his boss manage to rent him a house that's, like, all cedar wood? Real cedar wood, not the, like, 80% or 60%. I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
Like 2 stories, nice stairway. I looked at this place, I'm like, there's no way you're renting that shit in the 1980s for like $2,000 and it's like all real cedar wood. It's like bullshit. And then the black family comes in and like,
Yeah.
Because I mean, again, throughout the show, you notice he's making little mistakes that all just add up because, he wants to rush through things, try to get one thing right, but the stress just builds up and he's making small mistakes that just build up over time. And you relate, you're late for work. Maybe you go to a place you usually don't go to. You order something you're not familiar with. It just builds up and but you got your pride as a man. You want to be able to do this on your own. You want to be like, no, I can do this. It's one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely, Jarek, absolutely. And that, plays in the later parts of the film because they actually, they basically leave the house, not before Jack Chester, like, spills all the dog food,
Yeah.
Archie starts eating the dog food, gets Archie up, but forgets to leave his daughter, and then goes to get his daughter, and, Daddy, I went to bed. Oh, don't worry about it, sweetie, you went their bed, and like, they leave. And then their beach house that was given to him by his manager is, like, standard beach house, and, sort of dilapidated, sort of old. And then they see all these people come through, and they realize they're at a public beach, that everybody goes through their house to get there. And as well, his oldest daughter and, his wife are getting charmed by a bunch of boys who are like lifeguards, and their jock straps are hanging right on the thing. And, so there's that one. And then there's like, basically, I'd love to go over all his stressful things, but we could basically do that in the comedy run about what makes this movie so great. But he goes through things where he's on a sailboat with his son, taking his son sailing. They run into Al Pellet's boat. His knee gets strained because of that, so he's in a cast for the first half of the film for the rest of it. And then, like, he's having trouble getting around. His dog Archie locks him out of the house in the rain. He can't get good reception on his TV. And then he goes to his neighbor's place where his neighbor invites him over. He's sort of, attracted to her, but then, like, he realizes what he's doing. And then the neighbor goes, do you think these boobs are real? I paid a lot for them, shows him, and he's like, oh, geez, And then the husband comes in, and he's like thinking, well, your husband, Bill's going to kill me, so I'm going to go now. And then Bill comes in, my wife, she talks about her breasts. Tell her they're good. Tell her they're good. She doesn't believe it.
Give them a good feel. Tell them they feel real.
Oh yeah. That's good. That's good. Okay,
if I remember, didn't they say they got those for, what was it, like $800, $2,000?
I think it was $2,000. It was $2,000, yeah.
And I mean, mind you, I mean, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but in fucking 1985 money, that's a bit of a fortune.
Yes, it is. And what's great about that is, like, probably the best part of his stressful part is where he goes back into his house, and since he's not there, everybody goes into the house to use the bathroom, to use it to cook food, to make calls, and he, like, gets angry and forces everybody out of his house, and then he goes into his room where this big redneck guy is with his dog Archie on the bed, and he's like, get out of here. He's like, oh, bug off, man, I was here first. Get out. No. Oh, I'm watching the Smurfs. Oh, you're watching the Smurfs? Yeah. Oh, you're watching the Smurfs? Hey, did you see that Smurf episode where Papa Smurf had a crutch and it was going to beat the shit out of a guy in a red hat? Yeah, get your...
Remember, kids, why Papa Smurf always says, don't be a brainy Smurf.
Yeah, and that scene was so great. That was actually the scene that Josh showed me, and he's like, you gotta see this movie, Zach. That scene makes the whole movie, and it does. You ever see the Smurf episode where Papa Smurf had a crutch, he was gonna beat the shit out of a guy in a red hat?
God damn it, Brainy. I really Smurfing don't want to smurf the smurfing shit out of you, but if you don't shut your smurfing mouth, shit's gonna happen. I don't care what Papa Smurf says. I just want to smurf you so fucking hard you're never gonna breathe again.
Yeah. But as it goes, after a few more of those incidents, Jack Chester actually starts to fall in love with sailing. He wants to get better with sailing, and Scully actually teaches him how to sail. And I'll probably mention a little side note here for the story. I think we got it still here. Oh yeah, because they get it's Sandy Chester actually becomes friend with a person in the neighborhood whose name is Don Moore, who's played by John Larroquette. And, he sort of helps him along the way through this movie, too. But basically becomes a good member with Sandy. And I guess the rest of the family. It's just sort of a little side note, because it was cool.
I told Boca it was kind of nice to see John Larroquette get to play a nice guy. I guess this was before his law career as Dan Fielding on Night Court.
Mm-hmm. And as that goes along, Scully and, Jack meet each other. They keep, trying to sail. And over time, Jack's bad at it, but he gets good at it, like pretty damn good at it, to where he knows how to do it really well. And, Scully gives him this hook saying, you're a sail captain, you're like me, you're really good. And then all of a sudden, him and his family need to pay the rent for their house. He goes to the renter's place, who apparently was an old man who died. It's at his funeral. And you have Al Pellet, who's there, signing over the deed for their home and using the guy's poor casket to write on it. He basically just shuts the casket, shut people out of the way as they're trying to pay respects to the guy, and, writes the deed on the guy's casket. It's like, wow, no shame, Al Pellet, no shame. And, Jack Chester goes to give him the rent. They realize who each other are since they've had a couple run-ins by now. Al Pellet just takes his rent check, tears it up, and says, I want you out. You're out by the end of this week, by midnight, and nobody knows what they're going to do. The whole family's upset. Even Jack's upset because he's finally started to have some fun. But then he goes and challenges Al Pellet to a race and says, if I beat you in your sail championship that you're so good at, we get to stay the next 2 months rent-free. And, it's, or not 2 months, 2 weeks rent-free. 2 weeks rent-free. And, Al Pellet doesn't think he's going to do it. And then, Jack Chester says he is. They both take a thing of peanuts, or no, popcorn, and then they start choking on the kernels, both of them, which is rather hilarious. Because we've all know we've done that one. And as you can imagine, it goes into a montage to where Jack Chester looks at Scully's boat, because Scully tells how Al Pellet's always been a jerk to the town. He never cares, and he's just a mean man. And then he realizes that Scully's restaurant is a sailboat, so they take most of Scully's restaurant, which is the boat, and refurbish it, reuse it, and you have people that help him out, like what is it? Oh yeah, Richard Hurd, who plays Angus McLaughlin, who Scully always yells at and calls a Swede. And
stupid Swede. It's like, you stupid Scot.
Oh yeah, you stupid Scot. Because Scully's or not Scully. Angus is a Scot.
I mean, there's literally a scene where Scully's telling him he's trying to explain he's gonna have to go to Georgia in order to find a sail big enough and.
Oh no, he was checking all over, but remember, Angus couldn't find it, and remember they asked, where's Angus? We haven't seen him. Last time I heard he's in Savannah.
and his accent is so thick, even though I'm kind of used to it, I'm like, good Lord, boy, English, do you speak it, me boyo? Do you speak the English?
Yeah, but Angus, they were they basically repaired the boat and were having trouble finding a sail. Angus went all the way into Georgia, found it, got all the way back at the last minute to where they could make the race, and they make the race, and they're actually like way behind, but then they catch some wind where they're sort of catching up, but they're still a little behind, and what happens is Jack Chester notices it's his air traffic controller. He notices what did he call that air pocket again? It was
I forget what he called it. Something I forget. It's like one of those small like the powerful gust that just blows through, and you have to like navigate your plane. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, he said it's a something current, but I forgot. But
it was a neat scene though, because like with all the shit they did, like initially they're behind, and the captain's like, I don't understand it. Why are we going so slow? We should be going faster. And then like the little Chinese guy comes from under deck, and he's got like this ice cream bar. It's like, where'd you get that?
Oh no, that was Enrique. Yeah.
Okay, it was, but he's like, where'd you get that? The freezer. Remember when I told you to empty the boat of everything? Yes. And he looks at the bar. Oh, everything's like, well, finally my bad Spanish comes in handy.
Yeah.
So they chuck the shit into water.
Yeah, the fish sticks and the freezers. So hopefully the Florida Commission will not complain about that going into the ocean.
Well, I'm sure they found way worse stuff.
That's true. That's true.
So
but
you do see though, with the two of them working together, like he actually did get good enough, and they're catched up, but they're still just a little bit short. And then like he looks up and he sees like this small single propeller private plane is kind of struggling. It's like, what's going on there? It's like, I know that. That's I forget, like a head current or something like that. But it's like,
yeah, some type of air current.
It's like, we could use that. It's like a shift the sails, like I forget by how much, and they do, and they're like getting some pretty good wind, and it's
and Al Pellet's freaking out. Where are they getting this wind from? Why are we all going faster? How are they catching up?
and it's a neat little callback to like him being an air traffic controller, because this is something you would actually have to understand, and him noticing that and being the only guy who can make sense of that to utilize it for the race was a neat little touch. But again, it's just a little bit short. It's like, if only we had about, what was it, something like
2 more inches of sail, but where would they get it? So he thinks of something, literally takes his pants off, hooks it to the sail, and they go faster. And then they beat Al Pellet to where Al Pellet's like freaking out and like saying, I didn't hear the bell, and breaks his steering wheel. And then like one of the judges go, is that legal? I don't know if it's legal, but I like it.
Because in that scene, I look at Boku and I'm like, they're literally winning by the seat of his pants.
Yeah, and that probably sort of was the guy, like Jack Chester winning the race by the seat of his pants. But, in typical 80s fashion, that's how the movie ends. There isn't, like, really anything more to it. It just sort of ends after they win the race and everybody's happy and celebrating. So that basically was the plot. As you can see, pretty basic way through, but I mean, it's still an enjoyable movie and one that I love a lot. And the first half of the movie is absolute comedy gold to me. And and let's see, I would say the characters that take high points, since we could probably talk about cast and crew. Obviously, John Candy, Jack Chester, great character, great use of comedy, great stuff. Richard Crenna as Al Pellet being a jerk in this movie. Great, and just like great actor too. Rest in peace, both John Candy and Richard Crenna. Well, and for the third actor too, because he's dead too. Rip Torn as Scully was a joy in this movie, and I enjoyed him as Scully too. And he was a great character. You could tell he really cared about sailing, and obviously Rip Torn being a pirate. I'm not going to complain about that. So great stuff, and rest in peace, all 3 great actors who are sadly dead. And how about you, Jerk? Any changes or?
I mean, I know this is going to be something most people won't get, but the guy who played the Scot, like, dear God, when he was going at it, I was like, Jesus Christ, I feel like I'm at a Corey's concert. Am I going to get some Doogie McClain as an encore after this?
Richard Hurd, Angus McLaughlin. Well, no, Richard Hurd was getting it too. He would be my dark horse favorite because I did like Angus in this movie a lot too. So
like all your accents.
Richard Hurd was really good.
The only thing your accent is missing is a kilt in Scotland the Brave.
Yep.
But hey, that's Roddy Piper's job.
Absolutely. And, overall, I would say for this movie, it is very fun and enjoyable. Again, I did say a long time ago, whenever we get, most of these reviews done, or if we get a majority of them done, probably some of these films, if we go back and rewatch them, we'll probably even give you, the ratings or the critic consensus, like we did since I had already seen and did a review on, Highwaymen. Me and Jarek did a critic consensus for that one too. We'll probably do that for the rest of them. And we'll just say, not to get hugely into that, this film apparently has not been well liked.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're smoking, Rotten Tomatoes, but pass me some of that Ted Nugent Huba steak. I want to get high as a kite too,
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's an enjoyable film. It's a fun film. It isn't the greatest, but come on, guys. There's a ton of terrible 80s and 90s films out there that are enjoyable that you could have given this to. I would have at least gave it, if I had to give it a percentage, I would have at least gave it a 70 because that's how fun it is. I mean, if I had to give it a scale on 1 to 10, I think I told Simony I gave it a 7 because it was at least worthy of a 7. It's an enjoyable film. It isn't a terrible one, but it is still a good one. So I don't understand the hate for it.
I mean, for me, John Candy is one of the finest exports we ever got from Canada, and for me, even his lowest is still better than all the stuff we get nowadays. So honestly,
yeah,
just
I
for
agree
the
with
fact
that,
that this is some muy magnifico John Candy queso, and I want more of that shit, I'm going to have to give it a
nice
8.
word use. Hey, well, there you go, Jarek. Well, you guys have our thoughts. Again, have you ever seen Summer Rental? Have you guys ever heard of this one? If so, leave us a comment down below and just let us know what you think. Until then, this is 013 Moku and...
This is Professional Jackass Jarek telling you to buy, not rent Summer Rental.
Good word use again, Jerry. But anyway, we will come at you guys hopefully maybe within another week or so with another review. We'll see how work and time pertains. But until then, deuces, guys.
Deuces.